Hello and welcome to Not Awful Data with Dr. Jess Harnett, the podcast dedicated to helping you spruce up your stats teaching by giving you some fun, insightful data sets that you can use in your psychological statistics classes and beyond. Hello, welcome back. This week, I'm going to tell you about the Exportify website, which will allow you to download personalized data sets featuring your very favorite tunes. So to begin, Exportify is a website that works with your Spotify account. So you do need to share your account login information with Exportify, and you need a Spotify account, but this works with the free version of the account. Anyway, what do? You create playlists, and the Exportify website will be able to access your playlists and then download gobs and gobs and gobs of data about your playlist songs. What kinds of data? Well, Spotify, if you use it, you can understand that it feels magical sometimes, right? When it's able to predict what songs you want to listen to next or what artists you're going to like based upon previous data. It's all about prediction. So there's like a pretty soft, accessible stats lesson right there. But none of that happens by accident. This happens by algorithm. And some of the algorithm has to do with not just like clustering songs together, by being able to say like, oh, you like this song from the early 2000s, you like this song from the early 2000s, right? Instead, Spotify generates a whole bunch of variables for their own music, and they make that shareable. And they'll share that with anyone who can either download using Fancy Pants API or the very simple Exportify website. What sort of things do they track? They have 0 to 1 rated scales for things like danceability, the overall energy level of a song, whether or not there's a lot of spoken word in the song, whether it's acoustic or instrumental, et cetera. The list goes on. So these are a bunch of unique variables used in the background to figure out what you're going to love on your Spotify playlist, which is all well and good. Who doesn't love music? But how can you use this in class? Well, one thing I hear stats professors complain about sometimes is that there's no like unique personalized data set that they can give to a student so that they can analyze their own data. This can be a concern with like project security and dependence of work, right? Well, here you can have your student download any album and analyze the data. You can also have your students do bigger psyche projects, right? Like it makes me think of the way affect can be manipulated via music and song, right? So this would have a home and a motivation and emotion class, maybe an intro psych, where you could ask your students for their favorite horror movie soundtracks and their favorite romantic comedy soundtracks. You could download those and you could run your own t-tests to see if the romantic comedy movies have maybe lower tempo, what more acoustic, who knows? They might be different than horror movies on the whole, right? You can also download this data for simple means and standard deviations and calculating that sort of thing. You could ask your students to predict if a genre has changed over time or if an artist has changed over time, or two competing bands, you could put them up against one another, right? In terms of these variables that you can download. Speaking of which, how do I use this in class? In the next example that I give you, the next podcast, I'm going to talk about Taylor Swift. Here, it's just a few days after the release of her last album. And how do I analyze her data? Well, she's like deployed and shared the same version of different albums for financial reasons. And it's fun to compare those albums to see if they're actually different, if the re-releases are different or not. You can also, one thing that I like to do, so there in the fandom, there is an argument that Folklore is a sad sack album, and you can demonstrate with data that Folklore is indeed a sad sack album by downloading the valence for all of her different albums and comparing them using like a Great Big ANOVA or something like that. Anyway, this is a fun tool that you can use and generate individual data sets. I'm sure as you're listening to this, I hope you're thinking of like your own arguments and data analysis you could do about your favorite artists or your favorite genres. Maybe you can think of a way to use data to like finally put to rest some big, long-standing contention in your genre, in your fandom. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you soon.
Want more Not Awful Data? Well, good news. Jess Hartnett is authoring a stats book. Coming this December, Psychological Statistics for Everyone is chock full of fun, real-world examples like the one you just heard. You can order your instructor exam copy at siegel.wwnorton.com/psych sessions not awful data. That's all lowercase, all one word.